The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at dallasgenealogy.org.
So if we're all alike, then what these companies are trying to do is find the areas where we're different in the DNA and use those areas to figure out where our ancestors lived, or what we call ancestry composition. Unlike comparing you to relatives, ancestry composition is so far from being a science yet. They're still working on it. Every site comes up with something slightly different. It's fun, it's cocktail conversation. It's not very accurate. Why? Because we're all very intermixed. Even if you're Jewish, there was probably someone on your tree who wasn't back far enough, who converted to marry that handsome man. Personally, I've always preferred Jewish men, but that's just my taste, and I'm only part Jewish. It's just something about them. What can I say? But that's my and I can see my ancestors may have felt the same way. All right, so at GEDmatch, when you come in, you have a home page that looks something like this. And let's see if I can get rid of that.
Just say got it.
Yeah, well, I have to, I see. It uses a mouse? No. Just want to get that off my screen. There we go. Okay. This is not.
It's really fuzzy, Kitty.
Yeah, I'm going to get it closer. This is to demonstrate that the home page is horrible. When you log in, it's a long thing, and yes, it's not very. So let's focus in now, and we'll do section by section. This should be clearer, right? So if this message of the day at the top, you get, we call this the dashboard. This is what you see when you log in. And on the right side are all the tools, and on the left side are your particular, the things you've uploaded. As you scroll down this page, you'll see your DNA resources on the left side. You keep going down, there are all these tools on the right, and at the very bottom there's a contact us if you really run into trouble, and they do get back to you. Okay, you can't use GEDmatch effectively without uploading at least one DNA test. And it's right there at the top right, how to do it. I'm sure you can all handle it. One thing, though, about the upload of your DNA is it's going to ask you to opt in to let law enforcement use your DNA. Now, understand that law enforcement can't see your DNA. They can only see if it matches some criminal they're trying to identify. So unless you're worried about outing your cousin the murderer, I would say it's a public service to allow them to look, because they can't see your actual DNA. It's just a matching thing. And also, you're automatically opted in to identifying unidentified bodies, as otherwise known as the Doe Project. And they've had some remarkable successes. It's in the news regularly. But certainly if some relative of yours has been missing for a long time, it's nice to know what happened. Okay, so you've upload your DNA. I want you to upload a family tree also. What I recommend is you upload a tree that is just your ancestors, so that when you do the comparison to another GEDCOM, it's only going to look at your ancestors.
So not the
collateral branches. That's for some other websites where you're doing genealogy. Here we're doing DNA with genealogy, so you just want the ancestors. So next, have you ever looked at a GEDCOM? Have you ever opened it in the notepad? It's just a text file, okay? And this is what it looks like. It basically has a number, a field name, and then the contents of the field. But one thing I do recommend is you do this and make sure that everybody who's still alive, I change their name, their first name to living, and I change their birth date to just the birth year. Privatize it, and if you do this in a notepad, it'll all work beautifully. If you do it in a word processor, you'll be very sorry. because it will put in all this extra formatting. So you don't want to do it in a word processor. Now I have just so many blog posts on these topics. And here's one of them. By the way, my slides are all online at slides.com/Kitty Cooper. Easy to remember. And you can also go to my blog. It's easy to find. Just Google Kitty Cooper's blog. It's blog.kittycooper.com. I have tons and tons of posts about GEDCOM. This particular one is using the about GED matches. This is about using GEDCOMs at GEDmatch. And I'm in the process of writing a new post, which is going to summarize all the posts I've ever done on tools so that it'd be easier to find them. Because this is just an incredibly powerful site.
Looks like it. Kitty, where did you go to get your DNA testing?
Well, I tested everywhere. I'm a junkie. I started at 23andMe years ago. Then I did Ancestry. I did living DNA. I think I didn't do my heritage. I've just uploaded. But one of the things you can do at GEDmatch is take all your tests and combine them into a super kit. And that will have way more tested SNPs because every company is a little bit different. So in fact, I did do that. So, and I'll talk about that some more later. But what would I recommend? Ancestry does a wonderful job of removing the chaff, so to speak, the population-specific matches. On the other hand, 23andMe tests more of the medical stuff, which can be important when you're Jewish. So I would recommend doing both of them if you can afford it. But I'm going to show you how to get the medical stuff out of your Ancestry kit somewhere in here. Maybe I don't. There's a website where you can upload your Ancestry DNA called Prometheus and get your medical stuff. It's a little bit hard to read. It's written in medicalese, but you can find out if you have any particularly bad genes in there. So this is one of my favorite things, which is the GEDCOM plus DNA matches. But I think I skipped way ahead in this presentation. I think this was like, no, I guess not. Okay. So all your matches, it searches the GEDCOMs if people have uploaded them to see where you are related. And if you get something like this, I have to admit, GEDCOM was written by programmers for programmers. It takes a little getting used to. It's not the most intuitive site. Okay, so here is an output from the GEDCOM plus DNA matches. And you can see these kits all had GEDCOMs and matched me in the DNA. And it shows the shared centimorgans, the largest. And then on the right, there's a thing you can click. Okay, and if you click on that, you're going to get to a page that looks like what I just showed you. And again, a bit obtuse, but this is the, in theory, the matching relative that it found between your two GEDCOMs. And on this page, you can also, I usually just click to look at the pedigree to see if it's the person I think it is, you know, what they have for the ancestors and so forth. This is what a pedigree looks like at GEDmatch. It's actually pretty reasonable once you get used to it. And you see that little green tree there? That means somebody else has said, oh yeah, I have this person in my family tree. So one of my DNA matches has marked that as a common ancestor. And I could click on that tree to go to their tree. Okay, so this is my Jewish side. Love some of those names, right? When you run the comparison between GEDCOMs, I said GEDCOM, oh dear. you get something like this, and it's a little confusing at first, but what it's showing you on the left is the GEDCOM number, and then it shows you the ancestor name, birth, death, spouse, father, mother, so you can decide if they really are the same person. Now, I have also a lot of Norwegians on my tree, and they're really difficult because everybody is Olav Olafsson, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're related. So you have to look at these other bits of information and decide whether or not those are the correct ones. Here it is up a bit closer. Well, Halvor looks like the right birth year, right death year, the right parents. But on the other hand, Olaf is also matched up with Halvor, and I don't think so. What do you think? That's the kind of decision you have to make when you're looking at this. So, the free tools, before you pay money, that cool thing I was showing you, that was a paid tool. The free tools are listed here, and you can also get them from the menu. And there are a couple of really important ones when you're Jewish. First of all, when you upload your kit, it takes a day or two to, quote, tokenize. That means being put in a format where it can be compared to others. And while you're waiting for it to be tokenized, there's some really fun things to do. First of all, they have different admixture tools. Now look at this. Is this pretty? Is this useful? This is someone who is 100% Eastern European Jewish, and he's only getting 27% Ashkenazi. So you can see that this is a different set of tools, but there's a lot of Middle Eastern, East Mediterranean, West Asian, West Mediterranean. Those are all probably Jewish, but then Eastern European, North Central European. So you can see this is not necessarily as accurate as the main companies. It's just a different way of looking at it. But as I've said before, we're all a lot more mixed than we realize. And even if you think you're 100% Jewish, you're probably not. There's probably at least one ancestor up there who ran off with a handsome Jewish guy. So, you know, they say when they did the analysis of European Jewish people that there were 4 women that were all descended from, okay? And 3 of them are not from East Asian heritages. They are H's as opposed to the K1A, 1A. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Your mitochondrial DNA can tell you where your maternal ancestors have been, and that's not something we can do at GEDmatch. You get your haplogroups at 23andMe or living DNA, or if you use family tree DNA, you can dig down deeper into those haplogroups, and that will tell you where your deep ancestors are from, including if they're Levites or Kohenic. Another thing you can do when you first upload is to run the DNA file diagnostic utility. It's a good idea to double check that your DNA you uploaded was good, not broken. There was nothing wrong with the upload. I do recommend that. We don't have to go into this. All right, here's the biggie. One thing I've discovered over and over again is if you're Jewish and your parents have ancestry from the same neck of the woods, they're going to be related. And there's a tool at GEDmatch and nowhere else, no other site has this tool where you can check your own DNA to see if your parents are related. And how that shows up is you match yourself. In other words, you have 2 chromosomes at every position, one from mom, one from dad. And where you have a long run of homozygous. Anyway, you can tell when you have ancestors in common. And I meant to post here, but I will put it in my new blog post. I was collecting statistics, particularly on Jewish people or anyone from an endogamous group, on whether or not your ancestors are related. Have you guys done that? Have you checked that? Are you on GEDmatch? Are you going to please check if your parents are related? It's amazing to me.
My dad's kid.
Okay, is he Jewish?
Yeah, oh, he's like
Then check.
97%.
Okay, yeah,
What is the tool? Is that a paid tool or is that a free
a
tool?
free tool under the free tools called Are Your Parents Related? I really recommend absolutely everybody who's Jewish check this, because I have found so far like 50% of the Jewish kids I have checked have come out with related parents. And I think that's just amazing. Now, the relationship could be really far back. As I was saying earlier, my late husband and I shared 11 centimorgans on the X with no known common ancestry for at least 300 years. But it has to be from the Kut side because he's Ukraine. And that's why I also want to trace that one back. So there you go. Please run this. It is absolutely fascinating. Here's an example I did for a Jewish guy whose parents had no known relationship. They're from shtetls that were maybe 50 miles apart. And look what we found. Two matching segments in his own DNA, where he got the same segment for each parent, one of 8 centimorgans and one 8.7. That's quite a lot, actually. I wrote a blog post explaining that the trick is to take the amount you share and multiply it by 4 to look it up on the ancestry calculators. So when you do that, you get 66, and here it is. So they might be third cousins or fourth cousins, or they could be seventh cousins. Or what I've often found, like there are 2 segments there. They might be fifth cousins twice on different lines. So here's the post I wrote. When the DNA says your parents are related, I recommend that as a read, but again, they're going to be related if you're Jewish and they're from the same neck of the woods. So I'm collecting statistics on that. I'm fascinated by this whole idea. So one thing I do suggest, though, if you have some of those, what they're called ROH segments where you have the same DNA from each parent, what if there's something bad in there? What if you have some nasty recessive gene? And there's certainly many of those running through our population. So there's a site called promethease.com. You can upload your DNA, whether it's from Ancestry, 23andMe, or anywhere you've tested, and get your health results. And I do recommend that. Now, another weird thing I do is when I find a segment that of interest, is I go look it up, see if there are any good genes on that segment at the NIH site. But that's pretty technical. This program, and it's not free. It costs like $15. Are they related?
Blue. Yeah, my dad's. Yeah, that's who we were. Because I said, "What?
Your dad's parents are related?"
Yeah.
Told you so.
That's what the blue means, all right?
Yeah, that's what the blue means.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
On the chromosome. Wow.
Yeah, if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll give you the totals. So we had somebody here in the audience who already ran the his dad's kit through the Are Your Parents Related? And they are. Okay, I told you so. You might also want to run it through this Promethease to get the health results.
Oh, right here. Kitty Cooper has a blog article on this program. When your DNA says your parents are related.
Yes,
Right
I do.
there. No, I mean, it's right there on the.
I know. I've worked with GEDmatch quite a bit, and I blog about them endlessly. And yes, I suggested that they put that in there.
Wow. What drug?
Hi, yes. So I'm a little bit famous in a tiny field. If you're a genetic genealogist, you might have heard of it. But otherwise, I'm just fascinated by this stuff.
What a trip I had. Wow.
So
We never knew that my husband would have a famous ancestor. Oh my God.
yeah, Liz's husband and I were, I think, fifth cousins, but it was a line that was particularly interesting to me. And so because it's the only place I have any Eastern European Jewishness. The rest is all German. So I want to trace that back because I'm guessing that's how I'm related to my husband, my late husband.
I do have a addition to it.
Yes,
Tell us, you actually matched my dad
I know. Of course I do.
on Family Tree.
Is it me or one of my kids?
It's you.
Oh,
On two
awesome.
different chromosomes.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to send me his kit numbers. He's on GEDmatch?
Yes.
You're gonna have to send me that kit number so I can look at it.
Okay.
All right? But of course,
This is
I'm-
really
I'm-
interesting.
I'm only 25% Jewish in my ancestry, but I'm 33% in my DNA. I got a lot from my Jewish granddad. Thank goodness, he was brilliant, and I loved him dearly. But even so, I matched a tremendous number of Jewish people, so it's fascinating. So here's an article from the Times of Israel claiming that we're all descended, us Northern Jews, from 350 people in the Middle Ages, between 600 and 800 years ago. All, that's something. So
Does that include the kitty cat?
Yep. Then a terrific blogger who blogs almost entirely about Jewish stuff is Laura Diamond, and she collects the numbers. So I really recommend you read her blog and contribute your information. One thing you can see looking at her statistics is close relationships are in the normal range, but tend to be at the high end, like 100 or 200 centimorgans higher than the average. And but the further away relationships, like the fourth cousins, are way off, start to be way off the charts. So I did a little analysis for my own family and how many cousins there were. And you can see that as you get out to third and fourth cousins, the numbers go crazy. So back to GEDmatch. One of the things, how many of you use colored circles at Ancestry or colored labels at MyHeritage to separate out your family lines? You don't do that? Because they're too intertangled? Anyway, I like to use the little color to separate them out because then I can also, I can click on groups and see just that group. GEDmatch has the ability to color tag the kids that you match there as you figure out who they are. So I use that extensively. And you can do that when you edit your own profile. You have to know the kit number that you want to create. You give it a color and you give it a name, and then you can set it up. I'm going to go through this fast since you don't seem to do this, but all the same. The reason that's useful is when you do a one-to-many, you can click on the button that says Show Tag Groups. So then you can see it in your one-to-many. So these are just some discussions of the one-to-many, which is the workhorse of GEDmatch. It's your list of DNA relatives. So just to tell you, when you're looking at your DNA relatives at GEDmatch, I tend to sort, when I'm working with Jewish DNA, by the largest segment rather than the default sort is by the total, but you can have a big total with someone that is just the product of far distant relationships. You want at least one segment that's greater than 20 centimorgans. Otherwise, they're not going to be related within time that you can find. I'd like another segment greater than 10. Single segment matches are almost invariably hard to find if you can find them at all. So you need at least two segments, one big and one almost big. And then several more good-sized segments to be sure you really have a third or fourth cousin, a real one. Okay, these are the numbers. These are my guidelines. And of course, as I said, sort by the largest segment to see your real relatives. When you go to the one-to-many, you can take all the defaults, but see that centimorgan size, CM size? I make it much larger when I'm working with Jewish DNA. I use at least 12. Sometimes I use 20. And then you see the tag groups. I've checked all. You can check one. That's the colored labels you've given to some of the relatives you've found. And you'll see how that's useful in a minute. You see how when I do this one-to-many, there's a coloration over there. Okay, those kids are in my Monson tag group. Now, one thing that it's useful for, this has changed a lot, by the way. They change it all the time. This is kind of hard to read. Let's see if I have a closer up version. Okay.
You're frozen, Kitty. You're muted.
Okay, can y'all hear us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody still there?
Everyone's back.
Everyone's back? We're
Everyone's back.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
Where were we? Okay, I was discussing the one-to-many, which is the workhorse of GEDmatch. This is your list of matches. Now, it's not exactly intuitive, and I recently wrote an article for Family Tree University's magazine where I went through in gory detail what each of these columns are about. So hopefully that'll be published soon. In the meantime, the important columns are the whether or not they have a family tree, which is the GED Wiki, Wiki means they have connected their WikiTree tree. GED means they've uploaded a GEDCOM. The haplogroups, these are self-reported, and I was talking about how mito Y DNA is the sort of like GEDmatch for your haplogroups, for your different DNA tests. GEDmatch doesn't deal with Y tests or mitochondrial tests, but that site does. So have a look at it if you've done those tests and upload. So the key here is autosomal largest. See those up and down arrows? That's what you want to sort by when you're Jewish, because if you don't have a big match, it's not close enough to find. It's basically the answer. And there is again, by the way, these slides are online. You can find them. I think it's Jewish DNA for the Jewish Genealogy Society of New York. I did this presentation about a year ago. But they are on slides.com/KittyCooper. You can look through them at your leisure. And these things are clickable. So, yes, size matters. It really does for DNA. So remember I was talking about tag groups just a minute ago? So if you find a match, you can click on their kit number to get their one-to-many. So I did that for a match I didn't recognize, and I could tell immediately from the colors that she was a Monson. Okay, because green is Monson and yellow is close family. So I could immediately tell she was a Monson. I looked at her tree, I contacted her, and frankly, she didn't really respond because as I looked at her tree, I realized that her great-granddaddy wasn't who she thought. And I could tell her who he was, but she maybe didn't want to know. My grandfather had a brother who went out to the Midwest, and he was a preacher, a pastor, and unmarried, and well, anyway. Yeah, so not everybody wants to know if you can figure it out. Some people do. The other thing that's terrific is there's a word called match now in your one-to-many list, and if you click on that, it'll take you to the people who match both kits, which is what we call the ICW, or in common with function, and this is incredibly useful. If you don't have your tag group set up, this will take care of the problem. You can see when you look at this, this is comparing my dad with my new Monson cousin, and I can see all my Monson relatives there in gory detail. And that's how I figured it all out. Not that she wanted to know. All right, so what are some of the other free tools that you might like? Well, there's a different relationship probability tool. We've been looking at the one-to-many limited version, which is the one with all those columns. Why is it limited? Because the tier 1 is the same thing with more. So it's that's why it's limited. It's not really limited. It's in fact very complicated, but it's good. We haven't yet talked about using the one-to-one, which is where you look to see exactly where on which chromosome you match somebody. We've talked about the people who match one of two kits, by diagnostic utility, the parents related, critical. I haven't really talked about the 3D chromosome browser, which is kind of hard to use, but it has wonderful tables that you can look at when you're actually, to show you how much DNA everybody shares with everybody. So again, though, you can't really do that. That is not not a free tool. I don't know why it's in there. So I tried my new cousin in this probability tool. Now I have been able to figure out that she's a third cousin, and yes, she fits. How many of you have worked with segment data? If all you've done is tested Ancestry, you haven't worked with segment data, and most people don't want to because it's drilling down to details that are too complicated for, You just want to know who you match and find some new family members. But it's really fun to do work with segment data. And so I have some links here for you. Again, here are my guidelines. You got to know about the largest segment. You've got to know how many segments. Okay. That's too small. So if you click on the largest segment on that one-to-many, so let's say I was looking at my new cousin, it brings up the one-to-one form. Everything on GEDmatch is a form, and usually you can take just the defaults the first time you run it. Other than raising the lowest minimum centimorgan size, if you're Jewish, you might want to raise that to 10. This is what you get when you do that one-to-one.
This is Jacob.
This is GEDmatch. This is a one-to-one comparison of two Jewish second cousins.
You can do something similar to this though on family tree DNA.
Yes,
Because that looks a little.
you can do something similar on family tree DNA, but they only let you compare your kit to other kits, not the other kits to each other. Okay. Whereas at GEDmatch, you can compare any kit to any kit if you know the numbers. All right. So it's a lot more powerful. Plus, they have this little thing you can click to say, only show me the chromosomes where we're different. I think it's shown on here. See where that arrow is pointing to up there? Display only chromosomes with matched segments. If you click that box there, then you'll get a display like on the next page where it only shows you the places there's a match. Otherwise, it gets to be sort of a long, difficult page. It was a long page anyway, so I've done it in 2 parts. The other thing you can do is just do the numbers. You don't have to do the graphics. So here are the numbers, and I let it go to 7, but you can see if I knocked off 7, a number of these segments would go away. If I made it start at 10, then a lot of those smaller segments would vanish.
This is a one-to-one comparison.
This is a one-to-one comparison. One other really interesting thing is it shows you SNP density. Okay, so you want the SNP density to be at least 0.3 or higher. If it's lower, it may not be a great match, but it could be fine. Now, using that relationship calculator, yeah, is that a question or just a sneeze? Okay. The other thing you can do is just the graphic. This one's kind of pretty. Now, one thing that's different is if you have fully identical segments. In other words, you'll only get this usually with a full sibling or maybe a double first cousin, where you got the same DNA from each parent. And how does that show? Well, normally the blue is where you match here. The green is where you match on both sides, which is called a FIR, a fully identical region. So that's kind of a fun thing. And when I was first puzzled by how little DNA I seemed to share with my brother, then I realized that the DNA companies only give you the total of the half identical. If you add in the fully identical to the half identical, now it's a much better number. And that's much more realistic. So needless to say, I did a blog post on that topic also. And now it's, closer to the amount you would expect. What about the X? GEDmatch lets you do a one-to-one comparison on the X chromosome. And the X, because it has a different inheritance pattern, is very interesting. It can often reach way further back in time because a man gives a daughter his X. It doesn't recombine with anything. Okay, now the daughter has two X's, so she recombines them, gives an X to her son, but her son can only pass on the exact X that he got. So that kind of slows down the disappearance of matching segments. As I said, with my late husband, who I'm not related to that I know of, we had 11 centimorgans on the X. That fascinates me. I'm still in hot pursuit. Occasionally, I'll have someone I have a one segment match with, and I'll run down that rabbit hole. Yeah, don't do that. Tier ones, what they do is a wonderful thing is if you really get into this stuff, you can pay a monthly fee to get the more advanced tools. So what do we get here? My favorite one, combine your multiple kits into one super kit. This gives you a much better way to compare. Now, why might you do this? This is my comparison of my 23andMe kit to my Ancestry kit. Notice that they're not identical. There are these little places that they're different. Okay. Each company has selected slightly different SNPs to test. A lot of them are the same, but enough of them are different for you to want to combine them to get the best kit possible. Yes.
So if you okay, you uploaded your 23andMe kit and then your Ancestry kit, and each kit is going to be a separate GenCom.
A separate kit that shows up, but what I did is I made a combination kit.
But you're gonna have two different like numbers.
Yes,
I mean, you have one number for the 23andMe,
Mhm.
and then another number for the Ancestry, and then you're basically comparing your own DNA against.
And it makes a new kit that combines those two kits. So what I did after I did that is I made my Ancestry kit and my 23andMe kit research only, so they don't show up in other people's one-to-many. They only see my combined kit. Otherwise, they'd see me 3 or 4 times. So by marking it research, I can still use it for comparisons like this one I did here, but it won't show up in the one-to-many on other people's one-to-many. Because I have a lot of kids there. So one thing with the tier one-to-many is you have access to something called multi-kit analysis. So what I sometimes do is I run a one-to-many, I check a lot of the boxes, and then I click the visualization options, and off I go to the multi-kit analysis. And now I have all of those kits ready, and I can do a segment search, I can do triangulation, I can look at the 2D chromosome browser, the 3D chromosome browser, or best of all worlds, in my opinion, because I wrote it, is the compact segment method. Okay, so let's have a quick look. I talked about the matching segment search, and I'm going to do that for you, David, on the segments that your dad matches me on to see who else matches us.
Okay.
You know, because that sometimes then I can figure out what ancestral line it's on. So most of the time I don't get anywhere with it, but still it's a fun exercise. And this is what that looks like. Again, remember, this was written by programmers for programmers. It takes a bit of getting used to, but on chromosome 3, these are the places that I match all of these people. Okay, another one you can do is triangulation. Now, why is that important? Well, I have on chromosome 3, I have some from my mom, some from my dad at the same position. So triangulation is where I will match 3 people, so I can be sure we're matching a specific segment rather than part of one and part of the other. So triangulation is very useful in terms of common ancestors. One thing some of us like to do is look at a map. So this is all my Monson relatives to see, you know, all of this DNA came from my Monson great-grandparents. That's kind of cool. This is the compact chromosome browser you might see up on the left.
That's a free tool or is that a paid
It's
tool?
a paid tool. Thanks to Kitty Cooper. I have a version of this on my website where you have to feed it a CSV. And I said to them a long time ago, gee, it'd be so cool if we could just integrate it with your site. And so they bought a copy from me. So that was good. And it's pretty. And it gives you, a good overview. There it is, my Monson DNA. Yes. Okay. Now you can click on any one of these segments and it'll do a little pop-up that shows you who, how much, and what the locations are. Okay, now I talked earlier about the 3D chromosome browser, which is I find impossible to use, but I love these charts. These are the charts it gives you, and it gives you all the kids against each other. So you can see how much each of, let's say I have a group of 10 here, how much everybody matches everybody by. And that I find very useful and interesting, and does the same thing for the X, which, as we said, has a different parent. So I love these charts.
So in triangle, triangle is 3. So
Mhm.
you're comparing 3 kids. Can you?
You're comparing all the kids to see where at least 3 match each other on the same segment. There might be 6 that match each other there. Okay, and that way you can be sure that that particular segment came from the ancestor those people have in common, or the ancestral couple typically. Okay. I spoke about common ancestors from DNA matches earlier. That's really great fun. Love these Norwegian names. So when I looked closely at this, another cool thing, this does not work when you're Jewish usually, is the auto kinship, where it will automatically, well, you'll see what this looks like in a minute. Okay, this is what clustering looks like when you're Jewish. One giant box. In my case, the giant box is my Jewish grandfather, and the green and the red boxes are my Norwegian grandparents, and my German grandmother is totally missing because Germans haven't tested. Okay? So typically when you do a cluster, you'll get 4 nice boxes that correspond to your 4 grandparent lines. Not so when you're Jewish. You're going to get a big box like that one, typically. So you have to kind of play with the parameters to see if you raise the lower, you can play until you get something decent. So what about the auto kinship thing? All right, I had a lot of my Monson cousins tested. So did it come up with the correct family tree? Well, it got pretty close. It actually shows you the tree. Based on the DNA. Doesn't have any names, but I know those are my Monson great-grandparents. And that's Inga's grandson, and that's me. Lawrence is my grandfather. Alfred had some people. Christian had some people. That Christian is the one who was the minister who we discussed. And this one's wrong because this one's actually a sibling of Josephine's that person is descended from. But that was pretty darn good. Looking at it a little more closely, and I think one of these was just a generation off. It was there when it should be there. But otherwise, it was good. And you can click on that little funny symbol to get to the actual DNA segments. So when you have a lot of relatives tested and they all have trees, you might get something like this. Mostly you won't when you're Jewish. Get this relationship matrix. Lots of stuff, but I want to get to the one that's useful. My endogamous cluster. Okay. So this is my Jewish side. I wanted to see how it did. Now, Okay, of the 3 trees it made, 2 of them are actually accurate because my South African cousins and my Israeli cousins have uploaded trees. So this is actually accurate. Okay, my great grandmother Charlotte had a sister whose daughter emigrated to Israel in 1931. And as a result, I have Israeli cousins. But what's more so is she married her sister off to her husband's brother. So they're my double third cousins. Anyway, so this is kind of pretty inaccurate, but this last one here, that doesn't exist. That's not a real relationship, but it was fun to run it and see how it did. But again, that's a tier 1 thing. Phasing. If you have one parent tested, you can tease out that part of your DNA that's from the one parent. And you can create a phased kit. So you can use that kit to look at your, for example, if you have your father tested but not your mother, you can use your phased kit to look at your mother's side, which is a lot of fun. And here's something really crazy.
Well, I do have, I have access, I could get it, but my mother's passed on, but her sister tested.
I use my mother's sisters all the time, exactly. You can create a Lazarus kit. Now, can you guess what that might be?
Raising something from the dead.
Exactly. You can create a kit for somebody who you haven't tested. In this case, your mother. If you have enough people who are tested who are related to her. I have created a Lazarus kit for my mother because her 2 sisters are tested, her 2 children are tested, her husband is tested. So it can kind of figure out a lot. It's not going to be perfect because you need a lot of relatives to get a complete one, but kind of a cool idea, huh? So, as I said, one of my favorite things is to look for matching segments, and it's a wonderful, wonderful rabbit hole. Yeah. So, are your heads spinning? These slides are online. You can go back through them. The main takeaways here are sort by the largest segment, upload not only your kit, but your GEDCOM of just ancestors. And when you're ready to really delve into this stuff after you play with the free tools for a while, buy a month and do it.
Okay, so on that note, obviously a lot of us have, I have a lot of trees because I've done other work with people, but my main tree that I have is on Ancestry. But it's a big tree because I've done. So would it be better to create a separate tree that is just the direct
Well,
line
there
ancestry?
are tools. You can Google for a tool that could create just your direct line ancestors from. You can export a GEDCOM from Ancestry, but it'll be everything.
Right.
I also use genie.com, which is a very strong Jewish presence, and that will allow me to export a GEDCOM of just ancestors.
And she's a huge proponent of Family Tree Maker.
Family Tree Maker will also.
What's the one? Roots Magic.
Roots Magic.
Does Root Magic let you do just ancestors? I know Family Tree Maker does. Genie does.
I imagine it was.
WikiTree does. These are, look around, but you really just, and for the comparisons, you want just your ancestors at GEDmatch. Or are you on WikiTree? Just another thing you might look at. But I do recommend, particularly for Jewish, genie.com. It's a one world tree, and it has a pretty extensive
Is that a paid
Jewish
site
press.
also?
No, it's free, but like many a modern site, there's a paid, you can pay to get more.
How do you spell the genie?
GENI,
For me,
period, COM.
Sorry. But we just have
Okay.
talked about by the time that you get on with like My Heritage or Ancestry, and you're like popping out 100 here, 150 here, 75 here.
You don't have to pay for Genie.
Okay, because I mean, it just gets to the point where it's cost prohibitive to keep up with all of them.
I often say the reason I take on clients occasionally is to pay for all my subscriptions. Because, yeah, I spend a lot of money every year on my subscriptions. And, you know,
like I said, I just-
this is my idea of a good time, so I take on an occasional client just to support my habit. But if you have the paid subscription to MyHeritage and to Genie, they're also connected. You can pick up records from MyHeritage over to Genie. But what Genie is that's different, like Family Search, it's a one world tree. There's one copy of every individual. Okay,
Because, you know, there was just recently on the Jewish Gym discussion group, because I basically get their
Mhm.
thing every morning. And there was a discussion on which site people found either easier or helpful versus Ancestry versus MyHeritage. And it was really, people really leaned heavily towards Ancestry.
oh yeah, it's the most intuitive. It's the most intuitive and it has the biggest database. And, but of course, it's easy to click over records that are wrong. There are lots of trees that are wrong. And you have to, you know, be careful. I'm still trying to figure out how it made a connection that I don't think is right.
Oh, I see. There's people that have my family in there and it's totally messed up.
Yeah.
Some of them you reach out to and say, you got incorrect information here, and they just disregard it. But there's every once in a while someone say, thank you for letting me know, I'll fix it.
Right.
But there is that proliferation.
Do you
of
know, by the way,
misinformation.
that you can comment on a public family tree? So what I often do is leave a link to the record that shows the accurate information.
But it doesn't have- 'cause I can remember when on the way down when I was talking to you about the number of different Passman families that were living in New York City in the 1900s, basically. And a lot of them, their kids were named the same. So people have like
Right.
really messed
Oh,
that up.
gosh, yes. We're all named for Uncle Alfred.
So, but I mean, if you've actually taken the time, I mean, like me, I took the time to sort out the relationships and actually verify dates and as Liz taught us from the very beginning of this with Jewish, is that it's the profession and address, you know, because they weren't tied to the land like farmers. They look at the professions, look at like
Right. Schreiber, scribe. Tuckman, I think, is a tailor. I'm not sure, or maybe a worker in leather. Some of the names on my tree, they're fascinating.
Yes.
But again, most of my Jewish ancestors are German, and they took surnames when they're Southern Germany. And when Napoleon came through, he made them all take surnames. So there are these things called nameless, which you can get for the various towns. And in one case, my ancestors got the name Longerman. You know, why was that? They were tall. Longerman, tall men, right? And then if they didn't like you, you might get Schwartz, black. It's really interesting to see some of these names.
Then Kitty, my husband's, let's go back to Germany. Did they go to Germany with that name, Kutz? Can you, or Kutz or whatever?
I believe so, but I'm not sure. It looks like that name was pre the nameless, but we could look that up.
That's something we need to look
For
up.
those of you who don't know, Liz's late husband and I were related on the Kutz line, K-U-T-Z, from Münstergegen in Bavaria. And there was a guy who did tremendous research and did all the name lists for that town. Wonderful, a lot of which were then contributed to the Leo Beck in New York. So if you have German Jewish, the Leo Beck has all kinds of stuff. It's worth looking through their catalog.
I'm sorry, I just had a dumbfounded and astounded that my dad's parents were related.
I warned you.
You
I mean,
did,
it's
yeah,
this
I was
just
like, wow.
we're all related, but now
Wow.
you understand why
Well, I mean, but
Jewish
it got me because, you know, I mean, some of them came from Belarus and some came from the Ukraine. But,
they could have, you know, the relatedness could be from their great grandparents. I mean, it's not necessarily
That's a-
close.
right.
Belarus is right
Well,
above.
yeah, right.
Ukraine, there are all these little shtetls there.
Yeah.
And people intermarried. There were only so many
Mhm.
people to go around. I mean, if you do the numbers, you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 when you get back 30 generations, you have over 1 million ancestors. You have more, maybe it's 1 billion. You have more ancestors than people living at the time. So you know that they're duplicated.
So pedigree
Okay.
collapse.
Pedigree collapse.
Okay.
And, there was a study, there was a paper saying everybody who was alive and had descendants in the year 1000 is your ancestor, including, you know, whatever his name was, Khan. We're all descended from Confucius. I mean, it's like everybody's descended from whoever was alive who has descendants. Because not everybody who was alive then has descendants. And it just, you know, if you think about the multiplication effect and people spreading out, and then, you know, you could marry your 4th cousin without knowing it. I mean, did people really keep good trees back then?
Oh, there's been some things lately with, where like half brothers and sisters were dating each other until
Oh,
they
gosh.
realized that they were did the DNA and they're like,
Oops. Yeah, I've seen those. Uh-huh. They lived next door to each other, and one of their daddies wasn't their daddy, right? And then you think
Kitty,
about
did you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
the whole sperm donor phenomena. I mean,
I
obviously,
think that's where
that
some of
could
that might
happen.
have come in. So
Okay, was that Samantha? You had a question?
No, that's Eileen.
Okay. Ida Lee.
Oh, okay. Did you know that the meaning of the last name Coots is actually means owl?
No, I didn't. I just thought it was,
Oh,
I
how did-
just thought it was a variation on cats. And it's basically, we've discovered it was a coning. It was,
Yeah,
yeah, it was a
how,
coning.
how
is it,
did,
I mean, like Deborah Polsky
yes,
talked about that for
yes,
you.
yes, that's how I found out. And then, it was confirmed, you confirmed that. But, it was, Eileen's owl? How did you find that
An
out?
owl, yeah, it can mean a couple things. Short or small, it could mean an owl. It's just kind of interesting because it's a Prussian and German name, Coots.
Right, it may have been a translation. I mean, our Kutz line came from Ukraine to Germany.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
at the time when surnames were dubious anyway. And the
Mhm.
other origin of surnames is place names.
Uh-huh,
In other
Mhm.
words, my
Place
Tannhausers
yeah.
were, Tannhausers were in Munstergate, and they were known as Tannhauser, which is from Tannhausen, because they had moved there from the town. When Tannhausen kicked out all its Jews.
Dinkelspieler,
Yes.
yeah, which is, that's,
Is
great,
Is Dinkelspiel a town? Yeah, when it
Yeah.
ends in ER, it usually means from that place.
okay,
Although
Yeah.
I have Steinhardt's, and there was a town of Steinhardt. So it wasn't Steinhardt-er. Although, you know, it means stone-hearted. No, solid, whatever.
well, we're gonna have fun trying to get that back to
We are.
Ukraine now, because that just put, with her adding that to it, was like, okay. We somehow got to locate this and get it back to the father.
So how many segments does your father have? How many segments does he have in common, his parents, from his parents?
Just one.
Just one, yeah, okay, that's really normal.
That was on the first chromosome.
How big?
Um, 7.37.
Okay. So you go by 4, okay, and that's about 29, and you look that up in a calculator, and it'll tell you like fourth cousin, third cousin, something like that. But it could also be eighth cousin, you know. Idly, have you tried it yet? Are your parents related? Or you're not on?
No. No, I'm not on GEDmatch. I've never done that. But
So much
I don't think my
time.
parents are related.
So much time.
I'm gonna turn that over to you and get you hooked on that.
Okay. Well, you have to send me his kit number.
I have 2 kit numbers for him.
Okay.
Because one was his autosomal and one was his mitochondria. If I remember right.
Okay. So, hold on. Let me.
I'll have to. Well,
I personally don't think my parents were related because they got along really well.
I would have never thought my dad's parents were related until you put the comparison.
You'd be surprised. I was going to show you a genie. Well, it's taking its sweet time.
There it is.
Here we are. Now, let's have a look.
Huh?
Did you leave it home?
No, I just, right now, it's like I'm seeing all these numbers and it just doesn't. I can't remember if I actually uploaded mine. Or.
All right,
Oh, yes.
there's the Coots. Okay, looks like, yeah, the surname was taken. Yeah. It was a surname that was taken. It's probably on the name list for Monksgaven. Because as you can see, he was born in Ukraine. His father was Marx Alexander. In the early days, you were named your name and your father's name.
Okay, yeah, because this is the guy that went to New York. He was the immigrant. And
No, I think it was his son that's even that.
no,
Really?
it was him.
Well, it says he died in Monksgaven. Maybe that's wrong.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hold on.
The
One thing I
Alexander.
really like at Jeannie is you can do a descendant report. I don't know why they don't have this at Ancestry.
You may be right because
That's and okay, so sorry, it's a little bit of like overload, but not overload, but I'm trying to absorb. So this is free. What you're looking at it on the
Yep.
Genie,
Yep.
is you can do the descendants option.
Here.
okay, there's a
there's the-
second name, Alexander Coots.
There's the one, Alexander Jacob Coots.
Okay, that's
He's the
his
one.
great grandfather
He's the one who emigrated
to New York.
Monks, how do you say that? Monks?
Monksgaven.
Is that the one you kept like butchering?
Yes.
Okay.
Monksgaven, the town of the monks.
Okay. Some Schwab. So that's northern Germany though, right?
No, it's
No,
southern
this
Germany.
are- it's
It's
in
right next
Bavaria.
to Bavaria, Swabia,
okay.
Bavaria.
And he's the one that buried the Dinkelsbuller.
Yep, see,
There's Dinklesbeeler right there.
Yeah.
Dinkelsbuehler. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the ones that are buried in New York?
Yes, that's all. That John Daniel Coops is Ed's father.
John Daniel Coops, okay.
He married Carol Brewer Johnson, and her stuff. She's from her relatives, as far as I can tell.
Aw,
Aw,
Yes, that was the first time we ever met.
that's when we met.
that's you?
No, that's me and
Oh,
and
okay, I was like, that doesn't look like
No,
you.
no.
Okay, got it.
that's
Oh.
me and Ed. Yeah.
And
See, if you put your cursor on someone,
this group is because of that.
Yes,
Yes.
this group is because of it.
We didn't know
So-
he was Jewish until they did the doing the organ match.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was how he found out he had Jewish.
Well,
DNA was 'cause They were, looking to do an organ
they
match. for
came
him.
and asked him if he was Jewish, and no, we're not Jewish. And he went back and asked his father again, "Are you Jewish?" No.
Yes. Yep. The Kutzes were Jewish.
Yes.
But
Wow.
And
This has been really cool.
yeah, and it has brought a whole different meaning into my life as a musician, because now I'm studying the Psalms, and I'm studying the Old Testament, and I know a lot of stuff in the New Testament because you can't prove it, This has been an interesting path.
shouldn't be showing birthdays. So,
But most of those are dead, so.
yeah, I just noticed someone who's alive, so I'll take it back a little.
But the Henrietta Epstein, Marx's wife, her family actually went to Champaign, Illinois,
Wow.
because down in there's a Abraham Coots, and he came to America and married somebody, and Epstein's followed him, and they all went out to Champaign, Illinois. And then he went back to someplace in Indiana. So very, very interesting. I could not find, and I don't know how particular it would be to us
So
anywhere where is
here's where Samuel Wolfe married Lillian Russell,
yeah.
and that's where you went Christian, probably.
Samuel Ruff got thrown out of the family.
Hmm.
Okay.
And here's John Daniel. He's the one who said, "No, we're not Jewish."
Yes. Yes. Samuel and he moved to eventually to Zion, Illinois,
Right.
which is a Christian community based upon one church originally. Okay, and the Russells actually, we lived in Friendswood, Texas before I knew you for 14 years.
Mhm.
And Friendswood is a Quaker community. And his great grandfather lived there, and we did not know it.
Wow.
Yeah. This has been the most bizarre thing. What you and I need to have two talks.
Yeah.
We'll get on the telephone and talk, and I'm going to dig more into my Smiths because of moving where you're moving. You might have a visitor once in a while.
Okay.
But yeah, Sligman and Abraham, that's the wrong Abraham. There's another Abraham. He's younger. He's a younger than Alexander. So If you can pull that up just a little bit.
This way or that way?
Okay, Abraham Coots, that's around, oh, there it is, April 6th, 1846. He's the one that came to and brought some Epsteins to America.
Okay.
And I got his marriage license from New
Well,
York City.
you get to work on Jeannie and fill these people out.
Okay.
So, and then, and this is like a world tree or
There's
something,
just
so,
one version of each person. And what I like about Jeannie is they have a curator system, so if you argue with a relative about something, you can appeal to a higher authority to straighten it out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and the curators work very hard. And
I've never done really anything on Jimmy.com.
Okay, and when you
it has a
move
very
out of the
strong
telephone,
Jewish
we'll get
presence.
going on this.
Yeah.
It gives me a,
That might be something a topic for us at a future date.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
How many of you saw Woman in Gold? Okay, Randy Schoenberg, he's one of the curators on this site. He's the guy the lawyer who got back that painting.
Really?
Yes.
Did you,
He's big into Jeannie.
so Fioretta was supposed to be playing at the Angelica last week,
Yeah.
and I was gonna go see, I drove all the way to Plano, and they go, oh, the film never came in this week, we weren't able
No.
to show it.
Oh, really? So
No,
have
as I
to
really want to
show it?
see that,
I-
but it's coming to Apple Plus, I think.
Where
Do you
is-
have
oh,
Apple
is that-
Plus?
Is that a streaming service?
Yes,
See, cause I really want to see Fioretta,
me
cause
too.
Fioretta is Randy Schoenberg.
That's him.
Yeah,
Okay,
with his
okay.
grandson or son.
Right, and
When
they're
you
tracing their
hear it
roots.
comes out, Plano, let me know so I can plan something else.
Well, that's, I've been,
Yeah,
so they told me though, well, we're still waiting for the film to come in and we'll get it rescheduled, and it doesn't look like it's coming down.
Oh,
Cause I've been trying to,
Well, let's
I've
complain
been
to
talking
Randy.
about this film with this group for 6 or 8 months now.
and
Trying
we
to
all want to
get-
see it. It should be an exposition. Or maybe we could, does the library have Apple Plus? Maybe we could do a screening here.
I don't know. Well, I did see, cause I just finished reading Chasing Portraits. Are you familiar with that one? It was Elizabeth Warnicki, and her great grandfather was a Polish Jewish artist.
Hmm,
And so he had a bunch of his artworks. It wasn't huge on genealogy, but it was that same kind of time in, where they're trying to like figure out why different people have some of his paintings. And but how did you guys get your hands on his painting?
well, I've got to
Because
get
she's
my,
an artist, she's an artistry major too, so.
yeah,
We
well,
talked
one of the
about
things that sparked my interest in learning about my German Jewish ancestors was my aunt had all these portraits and didn't really know anything about the people, wasn't even sure who they all were. So that was one of the things I did, was track down those portraits.
see the
that's
Abraham
cool.
Coots, number 4, number 4 in the family.
In the fourth generation,
It did, yeah.
that's a generation.
Oh, yeah, right. That one, his, last, in 1920, he was 80 years old, but this guy, his name's Ira, and I can fill it all in
Do you
this.
have all this information on your ancestry tree?
I don't have an ancestor tree. You and
Where
I
do you
gonna
have it?
She has all
Yeah.
this because
in Roots Magic. But anyway, what I was gonna say is,
Well, if you send me
Yeah.
a JEDCOM,
what?
I can put it
yeah,
on
maybe,
Ancestry for you.
Okay, but what I was gonna say is his third son, I think it was, we found out about each other and they invited us to New York. And I got to meet half of Coots' family.
Nice.
Because somebody was graduating from high school, and I can't remember who it was now. But we went there and spent a week in New York. And met the family that he had never met,
Wow. Well, I think we're done here with the presentation
Yeah.
part, unless any of the remote participants have questions.
Eileen, do you have any questions?
No, I'm fine. It's a very good presentation, though.
I actually.
Thank you.
This has been a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your fees have been supporting these and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining now. Go to dallasgenealogy.org and click on the membership tab.